Hello everyone! Today we will learn about physical control and biological control of weeds. Both of these control methods in practical application have unique advantages, can effectively reduce weeds' adverse effects on crops and others, while also conforming to the concept of sustainable development. First, let's understand what is physical control of weeds. Physical control refers to using various physical factors such as light, heat, electricity, mechanical means, etc. to control weed growth and reproduction. Its advantages are very obvious. For example, it doesn't use chemical agents, is environmentally friendly, won't cause environmental pollution or pesticide residue problems in agricultural products. Moreover, the effects of physical control are usually quite direct and rapid. Weed numbers can be reduced in a short time, but it also has certain limitations. For example, some physical control methods require substantial manpower, materials, and time with relatively high costs, and for some large area perennial weed control, the effect may not be ideal. Common physical control methods include manual removal, mechanical cultivation, mulching for weed control, thermal weed control. 1. Manual removal is the oldest, most traditional physical weed control method. Everyone in daily life may have had weeding experience. It's directly using hands or with some simple tools like small shovels, hoes to pull weeds up by the roots from soil. This method is suitable for situations where weeds are relatively scattered with small areas like home gardens, small-scale farmland, etc. Manual removal can precisely remove weeds, avoiding damage to surrounding plants. However, its labor intensity is very high. Efficiency is also relatively low. For example, in a not very large vegetable garden, if weeds are growing vigorously, one person may need to spend an entire day to clear the weeds. 2. Mechanical cultivation is using various agricultural machinery and equipment for weeding. Common ones include plows, harrows, cultivators, etc. In farmland, deep plowing before sowing can bury weed seeds deep in soil, making them difficult to germinate and emerge. Cultivating during crop growth period can cut off weed root systems, destroy weed growth environment, achieving the purpose of weed control. Mechanical cultivation efficiency is much higher than manual removal, can handle large areas of land in a short time, but it also has some disadvantages. For example, during operation, it may damage crop root systems. And for some prostrate growing, ground-hugging weeds, mechanical cultivation may not be very effective. 3. Mulching for weed control is covering soil surface with various materials to inhibit weed growth. Common mulching materials include plastic film, straw, hay, shade nets, etc. Taking plastic film mulching as an example, it can block sunlight, preventing weeds from photosynthesizing, thus inhibiting weed growth. Meanwhile, plastic film can also provide warming and moisture retention effects beneficial for crop growth. Straw and hay mulching can not only inhibit weeds, but also increase soil organic matter content, improve soil structure. However, mulching material costs and acquisition difficulty may vary by region and season, and if mulching materials are not handled properly, they may carry weed seeds, leading to new weed problems. 4. Thermal weed control is using high temperature to kill weeds. Common methods include flame weeding and steam weeding. Flame weeding uses specialized flamethrowers to direct flames at weeds. Through high temperature, weed cell tissues rapidly lose water and carbonize, thus achieving weed control. This method is suitable for some open farmland, orchards, etc. Steam weeding uses high temperature steam to destroy weed physiological structure. Thermal weed control advantages are fast weeding speed, good effect, and no chemical residues. But it requires specialized equipment with high cost, and during operation, there are certain safety risks requiring strict adherence to operating procedures. Next, we enter the study of biological control. Biological control refers to using weed natural enemies, such as insects, pathogens, animals, and other biological factors to control weed growth and reproduction. Biological control's greatest advantage is that it's a sustainable control method with minimal environmental impact won't produce environmental pollution or pesticide residue problems. Moreover, once natural enemies establish stable populations in the ecosystem, they can effectively control weed numbers long-term, reducing weed control costs. However, biological control also has certain limitations. For example, its effect speed is relatively slow, requires certain time to see obvious control effects, and natural enemy introduction requires strict assessment and testing to avoid adverse impacts on local ecosystems. Common biological control methods include using insects to control weeds, using pathogens to control weeds, using animals to control weeds. 1. Using insects to control weeds. Some insects feed specifically on weeds. We can use these insects to control weed growth. For example, alligator weed flea beetle is a natural enemy of alligator weed. Its adults and larvae both feed on alligator weed leaves and stems, thus inhibiting alligator weed growth and reproduction. In some regions, by releasing alligator weed flea beetles, alligator weed spread has been effectively controlled. However, when introducing insects for biological control, must ensure these insects won't harm crops and other beneficial organisms. 2. Using pathogens to control weeds. Pathogens are microorganisms that can cause weed diseases, such as fungi, bacteria, viruses, etc. Some pathogens can infect weeds, making them sick and die. For example, Lupa number 1 is a fungus, specifically parasitic on dodder. It can reproduce in large quantities on dodder, destroying dodder's physiological structure, thus achieving the purpose of dodder control. Using pathogens to control weeds has advantages of strong targeting and environmental friendliness. But pathogen cultivation and preservation require certain technology and conditions, and in field applications are greatly affected by environmental factors. 3. Using animals to control weeds. Some animals can also help us control weeds. For example, raising geese in orchards. Geese like to eat weeds and won't cause much damage to fruit trees. Through geese's foraging activities can effectively reduce weed numbers in orchards. Additionally, in some wetlands and water bodies, stalking grass, carp, and other herbivorous fish can control aquatic weed growth. Using animals to control weeds can both achieve weed control purposes and obtain certain economic benefits, like goose meat, fish meat, etc. But when stalking animals, must pay attention to controlling animal numbers and activity ranges, avoiding excessive damage to ecological environment. Students, physical control and biological control of weeds are important means for us to control weeds. They each have advantages and disadvantages. In practical application, need to select appropriate control methods according to specific situations and combine multiple methods for use. Hope through today's study, everyone can master basic principles and methods of physical and biological weed control, laying a solid foundation for future agricultural production, landscape management, and other work. Today's lesson ends here. Thank you, everyone.